Hey guys, so I just finished with Fox News. I was actually at the studio for about 3 hours, coming in and out of different segments, talking about the breaking news coming out of the Middle East with Trace Gallagher. Obviously, we know that Israel launched preemptive strikes against Iran. We know that Iran is probably going to strike back, so everyone in Israel and actually around the world is on high alert. The fact is, this is something that Israel said was necessary. We're going to get more intel on that, I'm sure, in the coming days, but it is a very, very scary time. It's a dangerous time. We can hope that tensions die down, that this does not escalate, but we're going to have to see what happens. Thank God we have President Trump in the Oval Office, someone who does not want this to escalate, someone who never wants unnecessary war and unnecessary bloodshed, but it was a lot to digest, a lot to comment on, and it's going to continue, I'm sure, to evolve in the coming days. So take a watch here, take a listen. This is some of the coverage from tonight.
We have no choice. We are operating against an imminent and existential threat. We cannot allow the Iranian regime to obtain a nuclear weapon that would be a danger to Israel and the entire world. This operation is for our right to exist here, for our future and for our children's future. The State of Israel has the right and the obligation to operate in order to protect its people and will continue to do so. The IDF conducted significant preparations for this operation. We are well prepared both in defense and offense to defend ourselves. The IDF will continue to defend the State of Israel.
So it's really two questions, Dr. Nazarian. One is, as Rabbi says, will Iran be somewhat pleased that this happened? And two, the people in Israel have been at war for the better part of 20 months, and the country is tired. The country is exhausted, and here we go again.
Well, the country is exhausted, but you have to go for the head of the snake, and that's exactly what Iran is. I think the people of Iran, the people in Iran, are indeed tired of this regime. They want change. They don't want just a strike here, a strike there. They want this regime finished, and so do the people in Israel, because you're right, they're tired. And just because Iran might have certain capabilities weakened by previous strikes and these strikes, let's not forget about all the proxies. Let's not forget that they can just tell Hezbollah, who we know has a significant military capability, go ahead and you guys strike. But I think that Israel and the statement that the IDF just gave that you played says, you know, we're ready both on the defense and on the offense. And I think what they mean by that is we are prepared for all proxy attacks as well.
If we have Katie Pavlich, can we bring Katie up? Because I have a question for her. It's interesting to me, Katie, when you hear about Peter Doocy talking about this, and you hear that the White House is trying to distance itself from this, you know, to whatever extent it can. But there's also this idea that, you know, it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time before the White House, before the administration really has to get more involved with this. If Iran starts going after U.S. military bases, U.S. personnel, if it goes after U.S. assets in the Middle East, and if this thing goes on for more than a few days, then it would be kind of incumbent on the administration and this country to get involved. Am I right?
Well, I didn't read the statement from Secretary of State Marco Rubio as necessarily a distancing, as more of a clarification that the United States was not involved, because as you'll recall, there's been talk up to this point that the Israelis could not take out Iran's nuclear program without some kind of U.S. military support. The other half of that statement was a warning to the regime that if they do retaliate against the United States, against U.S. military bases in the region, as they have threatened to do over and over again, including this morning and just yesterday, as talks are ongoing or were ongoing before tonight. That's a warning from the President of the United States that we are watching very closely. This is Israel's fight at the moment, and you do not want the United States of America to get involved. It was clear that this was coming in some capacity from the Israelis. You had the President at Camp David on Sunday. That was an indication. And quite frankly, the President has said over and over again, we are willing to negotiate. I will give the Iranians an option. This can either end in a diplomatic solution peacefully, or it can end poorly. And just given the scale of the damage that the Israeli Air Force has been able to do just in the course of 2 hours, the Iranians have lost a lot, both in infrastructure and in military leadership. And you're also seeing some reporting coming out about the covert operations that are also going on in Iran tonight. So this is a very serious situation, of course, not just for the Israelis, but also for U.S. forces on the ground close to Iran in the region. But given the harsh nature of Israel going forward and not just doing pinpricks or saying this is a small operation, that this is to finish the job, to take out the the threat of the nuclear regime that is an existential threat to not just Israel, but the world. This is going to continue, and the losses are very severe tonight for the Iranians. One more thing I would just add, talking to a number of folks leading up to this tonight, this strike was not just taken in Israel's defense, but to prevent a nuclear war. U.S. intelligence over the last couple of days, including Ambassador Witkoff to NATO, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth in front of the Senate this week testifying, saying that if Iran were to get a nuclear weapon, they are pretty confident they would use it. So these strikes were taken by the Israelis to prevent a nuclear war and a nuclear strike, not to start a war.
Yeah, and I want to kind of double down on that with Ali Beth Stuckey in a moment, but and Cameron Hamilton, I want to bring him up as well to give us some kind of an idea about the breadth and the effectiveness of this attack. But Ali Beth, you heard Katie there. Do you agree with what she's saying? Do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, what she said about Secretary Rubio's statement and how she interpreted it as more of a clarification rather than a distancing, I think is important, although it's up for interpretation. I think he's also walking a fine political line here in the United States. It's not just, as you said, that Congress is divided, but actually Republicans are divided. Trump supporters are divided. There are people who think this is actually going to escalate the chance of a nuclear war, and then others, of course, who think this is a completely justified and proportionate response. So I think Rubio is being wise, but he's also being extremely judicious politically.
Yeah. Tim, I want to bring in Elizabeth Pipko, and if I can, Jason Chaffetz at the same time. I want to get back to the political aspect that Brett Baer was talking about here. And it's interesting to me, Jason Chaffetz, to you first, where you look at the political aspect of this and the fact that Trump knew that they were going to go in and that Trump tried to dissuade Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday, and it apparently didn't work. And do you think that the goal now for the United States is to try to get these negotiations with Iran back on track?
Yeah, look, Donald Trump has always, as the president of the United States, wanted to have a peaceful solution to this. He's been the steady hand in all of this. But Democrats are trying to rewrite history. Remember, the Democrats are arguing that President Obama and Secretary Kerry had negotiated a deal with Iran that would have prevented them from getting a nuclear weapon. But for those of us that were in Congress at the time, and pretty much anybody with common sense would look at that and say, no, your policy of appeasement by sending over pallets of cash and giving them free rein to do whatever they want was not going to solve the problem. It was going to accelerate. It was going to be an accelerant to them achieving a nuclear bomb. So thank goodness Donald Trump reversed that. But now, at this point, the intelligence is telling us that absolutely Iran probably already does have a nuclear capability, and that is so problematic. And those Democratic senators are just lying to the American people. They could go in and get a classified briefing if they actually did their job, and they would see that intelligence. But you see this rhetoric spewing from them, trying to demonize Trump, saying that Trump is the one that's causing this problem. But Donald Trump has been the steady hand. It was not part of this attack tonight. The United States was not part of this. The Israel was the leader on this. They did it. They executed this attack, but it was fully warranted. And the world is a safer place because of it.
Yeah, it really is fascinating. And Elizabeth Pipko, to you, it seems like when you talk about the Democrats, as Jason was just he was kind of referring to there, I find it fascinating that the Democratic machine has been able to kind of pivot very quickly from the riots in Los Angeles and to Senator Alex Padilla being tackled by or taken down by the FBI and by the security team for DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. They've been able to pivot over this, and now it's Trump is doing a terrible job on Iran. Terrible job. Israel should never have struck. It's amazing how it doesn't matter what the subject is. It doesn't matter if it's riots or it's a senator who they believe was wrongly detained, or if Israel, the machine goes into high gear and it's boom, Trump is bad and needs to be taken out.
You're right. It seems the only thing Democrats are still capable of doing is blaming everything on Donald Trump. The sad fact is what's going on right now is going on because of Democrats. What's going on in Ukraine, what's going on in the Middle East, what we have happening in our world is because of poor leadership on behalf of the Democrats. And by the way, Jason mentioned it. It's not just 4 years of Joe Biden. It started under Barack Obama. My first protest ever in my life was protesting that Iran deal, because the fact is that appeasement is what brought us here today. The fact is that when Joe Biden was in the White House, he flip-flopped every single day when he was capable of making any kind of statements or decisions. Our enemies knew that they could strike not only our allies, but us as well. They knew that there was no chance of any kind of retaliation. They knew that the strategy of peace through strength was gone because President Trump was nowhere to be found, and they knew that that was the time to strike. And the fact is, thank God President Trump is back. I don't care what Democrats waste their time doing and who they want to blame these problems on. Everybody knows why we have these problems in our world right now, and everybody is grateful that we have someone back in the White House, not only who wants to bring peace back to the world, but who actually has an iron fist to lead with, to scare off these enemies, to put them in their place so they don't mess not only with our allies, but don't mess with America as well.
Yeah, and very quickly, Elizabeth Pipko, to you, this is not going to surprise you, but Congresswoman Ilhan Omar issued a statement now forgetting about the whole L.A. mess, right? She says just as talks with Iran were set to resume, Netanyahu launches a strike and declares a state of emergency. He is provoking a war Americans don't want. We should not allow ourselves to be dragged into yet another conflict against our will by a foreign leader pursuing his own agenda of death and destruction. It's not her agenda, but it's a big part of this administration's agenda. Elizabeth.
The funny thing is, I'd love to ask her where she was for the 4 years of Joe Biden literally dragging us into wars around the world. I don't know why she's not celebrating the fact that we have a president who said that he will stand with Israel if we need to, but that he actually hopes to get back to diplomatic talks here and not to escalate what's been going on in the Middle East. I think we should all be incredibly cautious. We know that escalation is very possible, and we should hope that Israel finishes these strikes successfully but quickly, and that America does not need to get involved. And if Ilhan Omar wanted to be honest with herself and her constituents, she would be celebrating the fact that we actually have President Trump in the White House, a president who wants peace for the entire world.
Yeah, it's a good point. Nathan
can't fund these proxy groups. They can't fund their programs. And if you really want to get after it, you got to go take out their oil assets and their ability to generate revenue.
Yeah, I mean, your thoughts on this, Elizabeth Pipko, from your angles as both being Jewish and running an online Holocaust museum. Is it time to make a bigger splash and go after the oil so that there is no money? Take
out the oil. Guess what? They have no money. They can't fund these proxy groups. They can't fund their programs. And if you really want to get after it, you got to go take out their oil assets and their ability to generate revenue.
Yeah, I mean, your thoughts on this, Elizabeth Pipko, from your angles as both being Jewish and running an online Holocaust museum. Is it time to make a bigger splash and go after the oil so that there is no money? Take away, instead of going after the head of the snake when you talk about nuclear, go after the income, go after anything that Iran can use to actually build their nuclear weapons stockpile.
You know, I think that's certainly being considered by top leadership. The fact is, Israel probably knows what they have to do better than I would from over here. But when you look at the way we've treated an enemy like the Iranian regime for all these years, and we look at where we've ended up, clearly what we've been doing has not worked here in the United States of America. So whether it's us or Israel, when we talk about this threat, we have to realize that what has been going on, giving them piles of cash, as Jason reminded us, making sure that they are basically armed and ready while trying to say the right things at the same time, that doesn't work, right? You have
to go after any capabilities that they might have to harm people in our world. So the fact is, whether it is Israel or the United States of America, things need to change. This is obviously a post-October 7th Israel. It's also a post-Joe Biden America. So things are different. Things are going to look different. Both countries are going to operate differently. We'll see what happens. But at the end of the day, whether is diplomacy like Donald Trump is advocating for, whether it's an attack like tonight, which Israel clearly believed was necessary, the fact is tomorrow is going to be safer for anyone in the world that wants peace, and that's what matters.
Yeah, very quickly, the breaking news coming in. It says from NBC, Iran's most senior military official, Aaron Cohen, killed, state media reports. We're not talking, by the way, about Hossein Salami. We're talking about Mohammed Hossein Bagheri's death. Iran's most senior military official, the chief of the Iranian armed forces, killed in strikes launched by Israel today, according to Iranian state television. That would be two of the key military leaders